All right, I think we start, and if that's fine with you, I just make a few introductory remarks, and we will have some more attendees to fly in, and then I hand it over to you. So first of all, warm welcome to you, Ivan. Nice to have you here. And maybe you don't know, and maybe a few other participants are not fully aware of what this is about. And so my name is Moritz Schild. I'm one of the founders and board members of Hanseatic Blockchain Institute. We are based in Hamburg, Germany, and were founded more than 2 years ago from a crowd of Hamburg-based entrepreneurs that have something to do with blockchain and wanted to build something, an association which first of all permits an internal kind of communication, and secondly, which helps educate the outside about blockchain. And that's essentially what we do. And part of our activities, which used to be physical events, which was by far nicer in terms of community discussions and so on. We have switched that to virtual events, and one of the events we continuously do is the BloMo Blockchain Monday. So more or less each and every Monday we have external speakers to either tell us about more kind of the legal aspects of blockchain and data protection on blockchain and so on. Then we have entrepreneurs presenting their recent projects. And then we have people from, if I may say, the old world that give us an insight of how their entities or how their organizations look at blockchain technology and the market of cryptocurrencies. And that's what we are going to do tonight. We want to have this as interactive as possible. So everybody, please feel free to write something in the chat or use the Q&A function to pose questions to Ivan. Yeah, warm welcome to sorry, your last name is not as easy. Ivan de Lastours. Lastours.
Yes.
Okay, Ivan de Lastours. Very, very pleased to have you here. And Ivan is working with a bank which I think is quite well known in France, Bpifrance. And I think they kind of promote themselves as being the entrepreneurs bank, and it's a bank comparable to the German Kreditanstalt für Wiederaufbau. So they well, yeah, I think you will correct me if I'm wrong, but they partially providing supports to young companies and give some funding, but simultaneously want to support particularly the startup segment of the French market. And Ivan is working with them for quite a while and is head of the blockchain well, you're the blockchain lead, right, at Bpifrance. And well, tonight we are going to talk about your view on blockchain and where you feel that blockchain technology has a space, has an area for traditional banking sector. Great to have you here. If you were here in a physical event, you would have warm applause, and please imagine that lots of people chanting at you and welcome you on stage. Great to have you here. Thank you, Ivan, for your time.
Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. Sorry, it will be in English. Ich habe schon viel verlernt. Tut mir leid.
Have you ever been working in Germany, or?
I worked in Wien at IBM. I was a practicant.
Okay.
And it was very good memories. And I'm quite jealous of the German ecosystem, to be honest. I just need to share my screen. Is it possible?
Yeah. Before we start, maybe you give us just a brief introduction. When was your first exposure to crypto and blockchain? How did you get in touch with this space, and what made you decide to continue working in this direction?
Very good question. My first contacts were in 2013. Former friends from university, from computer science engineering schools, were talking about it. And in 2014, I was more into it, and I really fell into it into 2015.
Okay.
And yes, and it took several steps. I worked at Deloitte. Deloitte was kind of into it, but we had to sell missions about blockchain and cryptocurrency. So it was a very specific angle. And Bpifrance, the advantage is that as we are a public bank, we kind of took the time of seeing what we could do with this thing. So I will try to share my screen. So can you see the presentation?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, so our question is simple, is we are a private bank with public shareholders. We basically support the French economy. We inject something like 20 to 30 billions each year into the French economy. And I don't count COVID loans because it's massive, because we are giving the guarantee. I mean, the state technically is giving the guarantee to the banks on these loans, but we operate the guarantee. We are heavily regulated, which is very good. And on the other side, we are also recognized as the bank of innovation, the bank of entrepreneurs, as we inject something like 2 to 3 billions into what we call innovation financing. But in terms of impact, it is quite big. To give you an example, we have a fund of fund, and we are LPs, so limited partners, in 50% of the French VCs. So when we send an email to a VC, normally he should answer quickly. So what about blockchain? We had many internal debates as what we do. Sorry if you hear my kids. As what we do with this tech. And because we could have specialists for space tech, for clean tech, for every tech. But the difference here was to say, as we are a bank and as we deal with financial services, we have to consider this underlying technology because it can change our work, our business models. And as the Bank of Innovation, we had to kind of do something more. Which was very easy to pitch, easy to say, but not that easy to do. Why?
Maybe one quick question.
Yes,
before we move into the Bpifrance. So from the French government, is there an official view on blockchain technology? You may have heard that the German government last year published a paper called the German blockchain strategy, I think, which outlines and describes on about 150 pages or something like that blockchain is a technology that is welcome and that will be supported and so on and so on. So is there an official position from the president or from the government?
That's a great question. Yes, there is an official position. It's a sub administration of our finance ministry. It's called the Direction Générale des Entreprises, that has a position paper. It is still very blockchain, not crypto, for many different reasons. It is clearly bullish about innovation, how we should keep talents, how we have a good regulation, but it's still it's still a very cautious approach.
Okay.
I would say. But it is a very good document, and but that's why we have an important role to kind of translate this to the different communities. Again, our job is very simple. We have 3 pillars. We try to prevent market failures. We try to give active support to our business lines in push and pull mode. If they have questions, we answer. And if we have ideas, we push them. And we try to promote, accelerate the French and European blockchain ecosystem. Okay, what does it mean concretely? To give you an example, we 2 years ago, we realized that our direct funds were not very competitive, and some of our partners funds were not very competitive with token sales and SAFs, and that we had some great entrepreneurs that were doing great projects into this space. So it was kind of something we wanted to support, but we couldn't do it technically. So what we did, we invest into a dedicated crypto fund. We will announce this this week.
Okay. And that's a French domiciled crypto fund, or is it an international EU, or? It's
a mix. They have an office in Paris, but the structure is in US.
All right. Okay.
And we screened something like 90 European funds, great German players like Blockwall, Semantic, but we had also kind of some heavy constraint with the French deal flow, because we need to promote the French territory, so we need to kind of have a good deal with the fund to guarantee that part of the investment will be done in France, which is not an easy task in a
okay. So the underlying idea is to do an indirect investment because you are not capable of selecting the right target investments by yourself, and so you provide money into an existing vehicle to help them, and as a condition precedent, they should allocate some of their funding into French startups.
Exactly. Super simple on paper, took us 2 years.
Okay.
Active support of our business lines. To give you an example, we finance many startups, and I help with the sourcing and doing the financing. This year it was, last year it was more than 50 startups. So really helping the analysts or to do the analysis, to prepare the investment or financing committee, to give him all the support he needs. We can even give some budget for legal expertise, technical expertise. So the idea is to really support our business lines when it concerns this technology. And to give a concrete example for promote, accelerate the ecosystem, we organized events and webinars, and so people can meet and exchange. It's super simple but very effective. Of course, it's a full-time job. We have many different angles, but it's a transversal job. And this is very interesting when you are in a corporate, because there's 2 ways to pitch the blockchain guy role. You can ask for a heavy budget and hiring people, and which is a very good way, but I couldn't do it in terms of, I would say, seniority and credibility. So my pitch was simple to say, we have many resources that love blockchain, that love cryptos. So I can do many things. I just need a mandate. I need a mandate, a budget, a sponsor, but not that huge. I mean, our budget, to be fully transparent, is less than 200K per year. And last year we spent only something like 70K So we are very cautious with the investment we make, because the good news is that we have plenty of resources to do our job. And that was a debate, because some entities like Caisse des Dépôts, which is it's a very French setup, so it does quite the same job at us, but more on a regional level. They have a bigger organization. They have 30 people.
Can you give us an impression of, so how many startups are there in France that are related to blockchain? And have you had any kind of new projects that were issuing token as a means of financing within France? I don't know if this is possible under the French ecosystem yet.
So very good question. There is 450 startups related to blockchain and crypto. We finance 110 of them, maybe 120 for the moment. On the crypto side, we have something like 10 projects with token sales. I would talk about real token sales, not a hidden ICO or an old token that is recycled. I would say token sales with the SAFT rules and American token rules. Of course, in terms of law, it's a gray zone. Basically, we copy the US law. But to give you a very concrete example, we took an exposition to a token. We did an equity investment into a company called R&D, which is doing NFTs for luxury industry and traceability. But it's a true story. Maybe 1 month before the closing, we always do co-investment. So the other VC was like, so how do you do with the tokens? We're like, we don't really know. What about you guys? We're like, we don't know either. We're like, okay, we have 1 month. We have to find a solution. So what we did is very simple. We took a call. We purchased an option on the tokens. So we have an exposure, but we don't need the whole legal setup. We don't need to ask a program extension agreement to our regulator, to the equivalent of the BaFin. We don't need a specific custodian. So that was a clever way to do to take an exposition to help innovation without doing, the whole A to Z thing. But for some token sale, it's also a matter of, being competitive. Many French projects and many German projects, of course, are raising funds with American, South Korean funds. It's a reality of the market, because these guys are really into DeFi, are really willing to take risks, and it's something we have to take into account. And the token, it's a big debate, and I don't know if it's the best place to I will finish the pitch and then I'll watch the question if there are questions. The big debate about should I issue a token is a very interesting one, and but it seems more and more obvious that at some point, if you want to build a community, you need a token, and this is a new way to appreciate projects, to modelize to evaluate it. It's not easy. But we are clearly following this trend and trying to see how we can support this kind of projects. So the good news is that we have many ways of supporting projects. We can do financing, we can help them with regulators, we can invest We can simply do some networking, introduce them to other VCs, but for every project, there is a specific way to help them or accelerate them. Yes, I talk a lot about crypto because it is clearly the trend right now, but we considered every blockchain project. There's a project that we love a lot called Meditect. They're doing supply chain traceability for false drugs, and they're working a lot with African countries because it's a real nightmare there. The false drugs market is huge, and they are using blockchain. And it's a great project, and they're doing this in Africa because the drug regulation is more flexible for crooks, but also for the good guys. So this is the kind of project we're happy to support. But of course, everything is happening right now in crypto, and we don't want to miss the trend, and we don't want to miss also the knowledge. I mean, it's very important to be credible. So that's where the hard things come, because we try to have a practice what you preach attitude. So we try to implement some blockchain technology in the house, and that's difficult. That is difficult because we have old legacy systems, because the people are not very always, I mean, they are interested with technology, but when they need to change things, it's more complicated because the costs are still high for a bank, for a classic bank that needs to be regulated. And but this also gives us some credibility and help us to be, to be square and serious, because we try to see where a bank can work with blockchain and crypto world, and trying to implement internal projects. We worked on a stable coin, we worked on shared KYC, we worked on different projects, help us to understand the market. Yeah, I was talking about this. It's the use case in perfect square or in perfect matrix, but we have to consider every use case in terms of maturity, in terms of tech. I mean, it's not square, but that's why we look at healthcare use case. But of course, we would look at decentralized finance, taking Lightning Network, and we would receive every entrepreneur with the same attitude, very open-minded, say, talk about your projects, and if we can finance, if we can help you somehow, we would be happy to do so. We won't dismiss the project because it is about something less trendy than decentralized finance, and this is very important. So yes, we have a global exposure of 35 million euros on blockchain.
That's all equity investments.
Yeah.
BPI does directly within France.
Grants, loans, direct investments, indirect investments. So unfortunately, we don't have crypto yet, but so it's a big footprint. I love to say that it is one of the biggest footprints in Europe. What I hope, to be fully transparent, is that other institutions will do better than us very shortly. We expect the European Investment Fund to invest big tickets into crypto funds. And this should be done this year because they have 100 million pocket to do so. It's for blockchain and AI. So I hope that hopefully more than the half of it would go to blockchain funds. We finance 110, 120 startups. We did 2 direct equity investments, 10 indirect investments with our partners funds, and we will announce 1 investment into a dedicated fund. So again, we have some internal consortium projects.
So these figures mean that 97 startups just received loans, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Grants, many grants.
Yeah.
And DC's funds from the European Commission.
All right. Okay.
We operate it.
Yeah.
And of course, we have some limitations. I mean, it's EU law, but this is the product in a way that gives us the best reach.
Okay.
And we had the luck to finance Ledger, Sorare, that are nearly unicorns now, with small grants at the beginning in 2015, 2016, and they were super happy about that. So that's a good way to build credibility and say your idea sounds crazy now, but let's give it a try. Take this grant and we'll see. So next steps, we did some stuff clearly, but we might still be late. We have to be realistic. The German, the English, the Swiss ecosystems are also very dynamic in Europe. The US is utterly dynamic. Asia, we more see it as a liquidity hub. I mean, we were quite disappointed by the startup scene, but it can change very quickly. But we are super positive. We think we have plenty of talented entrepreneurs and corporate innovators in Europe. So I would be happy to chat anytime if you have questions. And yes, the last slide is just something I would like, if you have any advice, because we try to give figures to some people to say what does cryptocurrency means. Of course, again, it's not a perfect square, as you have some stocks and some flows, but we try to give some figures to say, okay, Bitcoin is 1 trillion and gold is 10 to 11 times this, stock markets is this time to represent the kind of the different masses. Of course, what we know is that, sorry about this intermezzo. So of course, the real financial market, and sorry for my crypto anarchist friends that I love, is here. It's the derivatives market. That's the finance we know today. That's where banks, investment banks, makes money and have interest. And that's why when my crypto anarchist friends say that the banks are over, not for the moment, because the cryptocurrency asset is still very small compared to the derivatives market, but it might tend to grow very quickly. So very happy to have your feedbacks and views about this presentation.
Great, yeah, thank you very much for sharing your view. And maybe we talk briefly about the DeFi thing. We had a discussion today, and there were some people claiming that potentially that Ether will be much more relevant for the next steps, and Bitcoin is close to being irrelevant and outdated, because with a particular view from someone in the financial industry, there is much more we can do on the Ether platform, and therefore that's what we should focus on. Do you have a view on that?
Yes. The problem is that everybody has a personal big bias about this, like, because I'm a developer. I develop on Ethereum. I love the platform. It's great. You have so many tools. But in terms of IT security, we have still some. I mean, there is much work needed. The good news with Bitcoin is that you don't have memory in Bitcoin, so it does simple. I mean, it's like an old car. It does not that much, but it works all the time. Ethereum is a new, very shiny car with many options, but sometimes it doesn't work and you don't know why. So of course, Ethereum has tremendous potential, and in terms of finance and automatization, and the possibility of smart contracts it's endless. But some of you remember the DAO bug, which was very, very painful. There can be some black swan events or stuff like this, where on Bitcoin, there is this sustainability risk. But in terms of tech, it's a prototype, but it works. So it's a very complicated debate. I think the good attitude is to have what we learned in our finance courses, is to have a diversified portfolio, so you don't maximize the risk on one underlying asset. But of course, we also expect some new assets. Ethereum has the biggest community right now and has many developers, but in terms of tech, we can do better, for sure. So that's why this will be super interesting. I just see a question about regulation and finding a job into this industry. It's a very good question, because blockchain is tech, finance, economics, and law, regulation. So I've never seen a field where there is so much intelligence and so much diversity. Many guys in the blockchain space, you're like, so you are technical, I mean, you are an IT developer and stuff, and the guy is a lawyer. And that's really amazing, because many people bring intelligence. For the law regulation, it's a very good question, because maybe the wiser start is to go with regulation, or to a law firm linked to regulation, because that's where the lawyers are the most needed right now. The regulatory authorities are telling themselves that they need some guys. The FCA in London told us that they are overwhelmed. They must rewrite the European financial law, which is not an easy job. So, and they need to adapt this regulation to crypto ecosystem. So working with regulators can be a very good starting point. But of course, if a crypto startups can offer you an internship, you have to go. I mean, I gave course at the university, and my personal advice was to go with crypto startups first and not big banks, because the innovation is there, and the risk you take when you're young to go to a startup is minimum. When, like me, you have children and a mortgage, and even if your crypto are doing well, you never know. You become more conservative. So maybe it's the right time to go into a startup. The problem is the number of jobs. I mean, we have to be realistic. Legal counsel position into crypto startups are still rare. Some people get lucky. Sarah Company, which is a French girl we know, is the legal counsel of Tether. So I think she had some very good work experience. So yes, maybe, but there is plenty of rooms to grow. And of course, the jobs will be created, but right now it's the beginning. To be honest, in Paris, now you have some job offers, but for 2 years, everybody was seeking some jobs into this industry.
Definitely. But what's the status of regulation in France? Is there already a local law, or are you looking forward to receive something about the MiCA, so there's a Markets in Crypto Assets Directive? I'm a lawyer from my background, so it's always good if IT people and lawyers talk together. It's appreciated. So the Markets in Crypto Assets, which is 150 pages and very, very much trying to apply a similar regime that we currently have in the MiFID, so the Markets in Financial Instruments Directive, to the crypto markets. However, everything what's written in the MiCA directive has the idea of that each crypto asset has an issuer, which, for example, holds not true for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has no issuer you can claim or something like that. But is there a local law in place already in France, and what is the kind of?
Yes, very good question. It's called Loi Pacte. So it's and there is a specific agreement you need to have if you want to do crypto business called the PSAN, prestataire de services pour actifs numériques. But basically, it's the mindset is linked to exchanges.
Yeah.
So we have a first gray zone with DeFi. But what I can say is that the regulator is still very cool, because he says to DeFi projects, don't come to see us, because if you do so, we would have to apply the law. So keep innovating.
Okay.
And we'll see. So we have, I think there's a very good mindset right now.
But I mean, this is not an official sandbox approach. It's more a French laissez-faire.
Exactly. I really love the word. So, because of course we have a very strong written law and Latin law approach. And we keep that. So we have some text. We would have to apply MiCA because it's a rule. It's a ruling. So it's supranational. And we hope that we can find some adaptation, because if you take the text right now, the DeFi is kind of doomed. Also, the GAFI recommendation is very weird about DeFi, because they say that the developer that deployed the smart contract must do the KYC, which is kind of weird. So we hope that everybody in the room would be, would be collaborative enough to find solutions. Because right now, to be fully frank, DeFi is the gray zone. And
definitely, I mean, that's the case as well in Germany. Even though there are a few companies that are experimenting with that, and few of them have approached BaFin for some specific questions. And from what I heard, no one has so far received anything. There is at least one law firm claiming, so under German law, I think it's similar in France, lending money to other people as a commercial behavior is something that will require a license. And people say, okay, but this is only applicable if you're lending money. And crypto is not money, and lending crypto to someone else for whatever purpose and against interest and so on, the kind of traditional law is not applicable, and therefore it's nothing that will require a license. However, if you dig a little bit deeper into what DeFi already does in certain areas, you really get a feeling that there's evolving a second layer of the fully fledged financial services, and you can buy tokens that essentially are derivatives on really traded securities. And so currently the law is ignoring that somehow. However, you may have heard that the German BaFin has approached Coinbase, saying that the wrapped Tesla shares is like offering securities to the public. And I think Coinbase has defended themselves by saying, no, our kind of wrapped Tesla shares are not freely transferable, and therefore they are not securities. But I mean, this is just the top of the iceberg. And the question is really, is it imaginable that the regulation will generate a framework before DeFi really starts, or is it something where the DeFi providers just have to start something and wait until they get a clear rule, which will possibly make certain transactions illicit or whatever? But for the time being, it's quite difficult, and I have a small company that's investing into crypto, which is fine. And we started to doing some DeFi, so we delegated some of our coins, and yeah, at the end of the day, we wait if someone is telling us that this is illegal, or if there are any. But in the absence of existing rules, nobody can tell me that it's not permitted.
Yes. So two things. First, I think the delays are not that compatible, because MiCA would go out, I think, in 2023, 23 at best. And when Christine Lagarde is speaking about a digital euro in 2024, we all know that 3 years in crypto is an eternity. I mean, I think we would have 4 black swan events, 10 new great protocols, and of course we have to be super realistic. There are projects that we love with great people, great citizens that love their countries because this country brought them good education, social security, social care and healthcare. But on the other hand, we tell them, maybe you can do some double, triple setup, because you never know. You're an entrepreneur. You don't want to wake up one morning and the banks tells you, I have to close your account because I don't know. So we have to be realistic. So for some projects, we told them, if you have a double or triple setup, we won't be angry. We cannot advise you to do so officially, because it would be counterproductive with our job. But if you do so, we fully understand. So
in Germany, you will not find so many banks that give similar advice to their clients or potential investors. So please, everybody, if you have questions to Ivan, feel free to use the Q&A section or put your question in the chat. I would be interested, because we talked briefly about banks trying to apply blockchain for their internal processes. And I know and I do believe that this is a lengthy process. However, from your point of view, if your board of directors would tell you, so let's, until the end of this year, apply blockchain for 3 of our kind of core banking processes, what would be the areas where you would feel blockchain is a good match, or it would be interesting at least to apply within an existing commercial or investment bank?
So bonds, green bonds is the hot topic right now.
Which one? Sorry,
green bonds.
Green bonds. Okay.
Yes. So the idea is that
how would you apply blockchain to green bonds?
That's the challenge. That's the challenging part of my job. So what we try is to see what this underlying technology can bring as added value with a classic bond. So for green bond, the idea is to bring more transparency and more shareable information about the green efficiency.
Okay, so it goes into the direction tracking and tracing and
exactly. The problem
is a footprint, an ecological footprint, which is not based on data that's just provided by the issuer, but that's kind of
verified. And but the problem is that matching a physical flow and a digital flow is always a challenge.
Yeah.
And some people don't want to bring transparency.
Sure. But I mean, if you want to issue a green bond, then you have to show something and to.
Oh yes, but they prefer. I mean, it's classic. They say I would pay an agency that would give me a good grade, and if the investors are okay with that, then everybody's happy. I mean, so we tried really to work on this. We worked on a euro stablecoin, but it was kind of too complicated in terms of mandate, because it's the mandate of the European Central Bank and Banque de France. Clearly, it's their jobs. So
I mean, there are quite some people saying there will be a digital euro on a blockchain comparable system at some point in time. However, whatever this is for, and it might be easy to use and quick to transfer. However, this is nothing to do with the real crypto idea, because it will be issued by a central bank, and the real crypto
of course
is something that works without a central bank.
And it has to be competitive. It's always the same question. I mean, in France, to open a bank account takes 8 days for a classic bank. One of the best banks, it's 8 days. Revolut, the UK fintech, is 3 minutes. Creating a public address on a blockchain is less than a second. So my question is simple: is what will do the digital euro? If you can create an account to a citizen in less than 1 second, then the citizen will listen to you. If you need to do, I don't know, 20 minutes KYC, go to your local administration, and then people won't use it. So it's a very tricky question. And when you dig into this CBDC thing, you see that we clearly don't have answers right now. Because, as you say, it is, if there is intermediaries with commercial banks, then it's what the use of using a blockchain, and retail CBDCs. Then, of course, banks, and we are banks, don't really like it because they lose the intermediation power. But this is clearly an option. In all the scenarios, if you take the possibilities, the percentage of possibilities of every scenario to happen, a kind of green scenario with a CBDC, with dollars, euro, and yuan and yen is a possibility, and might be a good one. But the technological race is on. And what we see with the DeFi shows us that maybe it's a whole new system. And look,
I think it is a whole new system, and the question is who is best kind of positioned to make the best of it, which leads a little bit to a question Arvid just posted in the chat.
Yeah.
A question that relates to me as well, because to be frank, the last digital revolution is something where the US and Asia have been the kind of the best players, and Europe fall back on that. Is there a chance for Europe, for France, for Germany to kind of come back with crypto? And what do we need to do to conquer against Asia and the US?
It's a very good question. I think there is a culture, a European culture of being a European blockchain or crypto guy. We value privacy much. So that is clearly something we might be able to propose some great solutions to the world. And it will be a mix of law and tech, because GDPR, if you really look at it, it's mostly law. And my hope is that we can bring a kind of a good balance between tech and law. And if we do so, and we give the right examples, then people would be able to pay for these services. And so that's one possibility, because we have to stay positive. The other possibility is decentralized approach, I mean, we have to be honest. Many startups told us, my developers, they are not even on LinkedIn. I don't know where they live. I don't know. And these communities will gather less on citizenship, but more on values, saying I value privacy, so that's why I'm buying this coin, and I'm validating transactions. I value something else, and this is a transition that began, but I don't know how efficient it is, and how we would stay to our local roots, or we would transition to a more transhumanist and more digital world. The COVID-19 showed us that we could spend days with our computers without seeing people. It's maybe sad, but we can do it. I mean, it's not impossible. So I hope that Europe will play a good role, and it has already a cultural footprint. I mean, look at all the German, the French guys in the teams. Every big project has German guys. They are German guys. They are German. The director of the block research, Larry Sermak, is from Hamburg. I mean, and this guy, we all share a common culture. We understand the American culture. We understand the Asian culture. Not all of it, but I think that this will blossom into a spirit, a way of doing things. And that's my best hope, because of course, if we look at the figures right now, yes, when A16Z is raising a 1 billion fund, okay, you can have some good ideas.
Sure. Yeah. As we are getting to the end of our slot, we have seen Tesla and a few other American companies officially promoting, particularly Bitcoin, and investing heavily into Bitcoin. We have not seen so many German companies. Is it something where you have? Are there many larger French companies that actively promote and say they will invest into Bitcoin?
The funny thing is that we did some loans called PGE, prêts garantis par l'État, so it's state-backed loans, and we know that some companies bought some crypto with these loans.
All right,
but it's quite exceptional, and it's because we know some market makers that told us, okay, they're doing this, and it might be a good idea for some industries, but no, the only company that took a real position is our national electricity companies.
Okay.
Because they are working on a proof of stake validator with Tezos. So right. That's an official position.
But that's not EDF.
It's a subsidiary of EDF.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. They are working on cloud servers, and they are working on validators. So that's official. Otherwise, we have official projects with Banque de France on a digital euro.
All right.
But otherwise, people are super discreet. I mean, we would be the first institutional to go with a crypto fund. The other institutional is a video game company.
Okay.
So
there's one other question in the chat asking, what is the biggest barrier in Europe for accepting or having mainstream?
I plead guilty. It's banks.
Okay.
The on-ramp, off-ramp systems are not very efficient here, and this is key because we have less liquidity than and kind of possibilities. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Binance Smart Chain, but in terms of strategy, when you look at what they did, it's pure genius. They have seen the DeFi. They say, okay, we will mimic something that will bring liquidity back to us. It's genius. I mean, in terms of corporate strategy, it's really smart. And that's where I'm quite worried sometimes to say in Europe we need to be more creative, because Binance is super powerful, and all these firms, the Coinbase, the Binance, they are venture arms. So if a new tech is emerging in the blockchain crypto space, they would invest directly. So yes, we are late. I mean, we have to be realistic. We have some great projects, great teams. Guys like, of course, Bitpanda, Centrifuge, Berlin, really interesting what they does with classic finance. But yes, the gravitational forces are in US and China. I mean, in Asia. Singapore also is very, very powerful. Singapore has.
So, but from your experience and from your portfolio, is there one favorite blockchain project you like the most, and you would most intensively hope that this is going to succeed?
I have to cheat the French project. Sorry, we really love Paraswap. It's a DEX Paraswap. Paraswap.io. It's a DEX aggregator, like 1inch. But what we love is that they have a real decentralized approach of the code execution. So the CEO told me, my objective is to be able to wake up one day and not having to do a single thing about the company, because everything will be decentralized. The execution, I don't have to reboot a server, or everything would be fully decentralized. And we love this vision, and I hope it's growing very fast. They did an extension round, and they are maybe a little less aggressive than Alex from 1inch. But I also love 1inch, but it's a different approach.
Great. Ivan, thank you very much for your time. And
thanks for you.
Pretty interesting to hearing your points, and all the audience, thank you for being with us tonight. And well, looking forward to next Monday. Thanks again. Tschüss. Schönen Abend euch allen.
Tschüss. Schönen Abend.